We are looking at DesignSpark Mechanical and FreeCAD side by side, and let's do a comparison on the workflows. Now, DesignSpark Mechanical is not a parametric CAD platform, so it runs in a different vein than a Libre, FreeCAD, SolidWorks, right? This is something that has advantages and disadvantages, and it's worth mentioning. Ultimately, I'm a parametric guy, but DesignSpark does such a good job at modeling within parameters that we should just look at it. It can take a lot to learn a whole new platform, but it was made possible by today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. I'm so happy to have found an organization that has a vision like mine, making concepts easy to learn. I appreciate Brilliant for their animations. Being able to visualize important concepts and moving images is so much easier than trying to look at still photos. And if you're a CAD modeler, I imagine that's true for you too. Even better, though, is the interactivity. This is a real cornerstone for learning. Whether you're learning math or working on programming, taking a class on logic, or reviewing advanced science, the interactivity makes learning both fun and easier to remember. And Brilliant has been so helpful in supporting this channel to allow content that I wouldn't normally be able to make, but it's even better than this. They also support you, because right now they're offering 20% off for the first 200 subscribers. Brilliant offers introductory, low-level courses for beginners and advanced content for those who are experienced. At all levels, I believe there's something for everyone on Brilliant. Please check out my link in the description. So let's talk about DesignSpark here, and I'm going to open up my screen right about there, and that way I can switch between the two for later on. DesignSpark is free to use, but it is not open source. You might call this something like freemium, right? Because it's free to model, you can 3D print with it, you can export STL files, but it is not something that has its full functionality free, right? You pay for an add-in that can export step files, or you pay for an add-in that can do drawings, or you pay for an add-in that can do assemblies. But as a base modeler, you can 3D print with it, you can do all sorts of things with it for free as far as the modeling goes. So let's take a look at the workflow of this direct and not parametric modeler by creating File, New Design. And before we do that, let's go over here to DesignSpark Options. If you are coming from FreeCAD, SolidWorks, or any other parametric platform, you will do yourself a big favor by going Options, Advanced, and making sure that Enable Constraint-Based Sketching is turned on. I don't think that takes any features or functionality away from DesignSpark, but it complicates the Sketcher environment in a way that is more familiar to FreeCAD, SolidWorks, Libre users, and so on. So we're going to go create a new design, and we're just going to model a made-up part to get familiar with what this kind of platform looks like. First, we're going to go over here to Plan View, right? And that puts us right on the XY plane with the sketching grid. I'm going to come over here to Sketch. And maybe I'll use my Line tool, right? And this has some grid snapping features, which is really nice. So I can't speak for DesignSpark, but I have a feeling that grid snapping is kind of a way to the default to sketch on. But we can make whatever crazy shape we want, and I can put a circle in the middle, right? The sketching environment with the sketching tools should look pretty familiar. We have line, circle, rectangle, and then we have a 3-point rectangle, ellipse. We have spline. We've got center point or sweep arc, it's a center point arc. They just call it a sweep arc in this platform. 3-point arc. We'd also call it a rim point arc. Tangent arc, 3-point circle, point. Right, these are all really familiar things. You have some things like offset here and a few other sketching tools. Sketch fillet or create around a corner. Create a corner. These are all just the same tools with different names. And you have constraints over here. So we're going to sketch more in depth, but basic look at sketching here. We're going to end our sketch. And when we end our sketch, I can use my center mouse button to rotate. I can hold Control and use my center mouse button to zoom. I can use my, I guess that's a, I really haven't used the right mouse button very much, but apparently you can right mouse button and draw lines to do stuff. Haven't used that part of Libre, or getting all my platforms mixed up. Haven't used that part of DesignSpark yet. You can hold Shift and use your center mouse button to pan your view, right? So we have the sketch that has already been converted into two surfaces, right? You have this surface with the hole in it, and you have this surface that doesn't. And you can see we're on the pull tool. And the interesting thing about DesignSpark is I can just pull a surface into a solid. And when I do, it should allow me to, pull one face over. I'll hit Control-Z. It should also allow me to pull my other surface into a solid if I wish to have it, come down to a certain point. Likewise, I can pull it out further if I would like to have a peg. So it's very interactive, and this is what we call a direct modeler because we're not using sketches as much as we are just directly modeling the geometry of these things. So I can change the size of a circle, right, just by pulling it. I can add a rounded edge onto a point. Likewise over here, I can click on that rounded edge, which we call fillet, of course, and convert it to a chamfer. And then there's my chamfer. So I can also click on this and give this a value. Maybe I want this 1 millimeter, right? So it has all sorts of interactivity just built in because, again, this is a direct modeler based on different principles than parametric modeling. And the real key advantage that we're looking at here is how easy it is for me to start to edit this stuff just immediately, right? Look at that, I can even change the radius of one edge. And all I'm doing is clicking on this stuff. So that would be yep, there we go, right? Shrinking that up. That would be what a direct modeler looks like. But there's, and we're going to get into some of these other tools, like the blend tool, which is really useful. Also, I guess the move tool is worth mentioning right now, right? So I can hold Control and select all of these faces and just move this whole thing down if I wish, right? So by now you're probably thinking this is pretty cool. What's the downside? And this could be a deal breaker for some people, but right now all I have is a solid. So I don't have a parametric history tree where I go back and change my sketch dimensions. I have to edit that directly. So we'll talk about ways that both makes workflows easier and harder as we get into this. So that is what the workflow looks like, right? You're just directly editing all of this stuff. And it makes for a very quick and very easy workflow. But let's make a part in DesignSpark, and let's make the same part in FreeCAD, and talk about what FreeCAD offers that DesignSpark doesn't. And you can already see what DesignSpark offers, a very fast and easy user interface to directly edit things that FreeCAD, at least the base of FreeCAD, doesn't. But we are going to go into a direct modeling approach for FreeCAD and some efforts that one particular FreeCAD user has made to bring this kind of direct modeling workflow into FreeCAD, which is pretty exciting. So stay tuned because we're going to cover that very soon. Let's make a new design. And we'll come over here in FreeCAD, and I'm going to work in part design. I'll make a new part here in FreeCAD, and we'll start a sketch on the XY plane. So we'll try to keep these oriented the same, both sketching on the XY. We're going to go to Plan View here in DesignSpark. We're going to go into the sketch, and I'm going to draw a circle. And how about 2 arcs? We're going to go with swept arcs down here. Arc, and then I attach right on that arc center to make sure that these are concentric arcs. And we're going to say line. And actually, I don't want to put a line down there right now. We're going to choose this little horizontal constraint, right? Should look and feel a lot like FreeCAD or any other platform. And I'll choose a coincident constraint. And I choose this point and my arc center. And just to make sure, yes, okay, we did add that in. Next, we'll add this point onto this circle coincident and this point onto this circle again. I'm going to right click on my circle and hit this little dotted line which toggles it for construction geometry. We'll add a dimension here. I'm going to say 0.0625 times 25.4 because I know this I know the dimensions of my compressor in inches. We will now grab this coincident. We'll choose this center point, and that will make sure that my circle is coincident to my origin, right? Great for orientation. That would actually be very critical for coming up, that your circle has the origin as its center point. From here, we're going to say, how about 6.35. And to keep it simple, we'll add in this horizontal dimension also. Let's go with 6.35 if I can do my keyboard right. Give this a radius. We're going to say 4 times 25.4. We'll give this a dimension. How about 8 times 25.4, right? Kind of big compressor. And you'll see that everything has gone from this cyan color. So if I draw a sketch element here that's like this kind of cyan blue versus this navy blue, right? When things are fully constrained, they turn navy blue. When things are not constrained, they have a cyan color to them. Should, again, bring back a lot of memories of other platforms, right? The sketching environment really works the same like in other platforms. So I just made a 3-point arc that I drew to cover, to enclose rather, this kind of blade profile that we're working on. We're going to end the sketch here, and now we have a surface. And of course, we can direct edit, the opposite of parametric. We can direct edit elements of this if we wish, right? So we cannot go back and edit our sketch, but I can do things like grab edges and alter the profile of the edges quite dramatically, as you can see. I'm going to hit Control-Z, though, and go back to what we were originally editing. So instead of having a sketch, we're given a surface that we can direct edit. FreeCAD, let's do the same thing, right? We're going to create a circle. I can highlight my circle and toggle it for construction. Shift-R, right? We're going to give this a radius of 4 times 25.4. So we have a construction line that has a radius or a diameter of 8, radius of 4, and that's in inches. But I'm using millimeters because that's what these default to. We're going to make 2 arcs, make them concentric. Again, this is not a beginner's tutorial, so any good designer really ought to know multiple units and be comfortable using them. We're going to say H for horizontal, Shift H, 0.0625 times 25.4. And we'll grab coincident here. Coincident these. Just as before, as you can tell, the sketching environment feels probably almost identical as it should. 6.35. We'll add in a horizontal, Shift H for horizontal, right? 6.35, and then we'll add a horizontal, I guess I need to say H. All right, select these points, H for horizontal, and then we'll grab this one, Shift R, we're going to say 4 times 25.4, and then I'm going to add a rim point arc. With some of the sketching constraints, I just find using a rim point is a little bit easier to avoid redundance in FreeCAD. So we're going to grab these arcs and say E for equal. I wouldn't worry too much about this appearing off the circle. I think we're just dealing with a little graphics display anomaly there. So we'll close that, right? We theoretically have the exact same thing. FreeCAD, of course, gives us a sketch. DesignSpark gives us a surface instead, right? So there's no sketch in the tree to go back and edit. We're going to go to Z, and I'm holding Control and clicking Y. And I'm going to go to my sketch and go to create a rectangle, and it takes me into the sketch environment. And because I had my Z and my Y axes highlighted, it automatically knows I want to go to the ZY plane. So we'll go to the plan view, draw a rectangle, and simply dimension this up. We're going to add this dimension and say 0.0625 times 25.4. We're going to add this dimension. We'll make it something like 6.35. We'll make this, give it a distance of 25.4 times 3, and then we'll come over here. Let's say 50 point, type that wrong, 50.8. Perfect. We'll end the sketch. So there's our second sketch. That's looking pretty good. We'll come over here to FreeCAD. We'll create a sketch on the same plane as we had. We're going to say OK. Add a rectangle. We're going to say Shift V. We're going to say 0.0625 times 25.4. Shift H to add a horizontal. 6.35. Shift V. We'll make this that same vertical 50.8. Shift H, we'll say 3 times 25.4, and there we have it, right? So we'll close that. Why don't we just keep going in FreeCAD? I selected that point. You know what? Actually, let's select this point right here. Here and here. And we'll go with a plane. And it already knows I want to do a plane by 3 points that were already defined. So we're going to say OK. We're going to select this plane to sketch, and then I'm going to go and hide the plane with the space bar in the tree. Don't have to do that, I just like to. So I'm going to import this point and this point. We'll select our rim point arc. Shift R for a radius. We're going to say 4 times 25.4. Makes a nice little curve right there. So we'll go to Tasks and Close. So we've got our 2 sketches and a sketch running between them. We'll switch back to DesignSpark Mechanical, right? And I'm going to go to my Select tool instead of my Pull tool. And I'll hold Control, Select. You know what? I've got my curves folder right here, and I can uncheck this to hide it from being visible, and that's what I want to do. So I can select that point without selecting my circle. We'll hold Control and choose this upper point, and then this lower point. And then we'll, where's our plane button? There's our plane button, right? So we create a plane, and of course it knows that I've selected 3 points, so it just makes a plane that goes through those 3 points. And this plane is highlighted, so I can just start sketching. I'll take it to the plan view. You can see my origin comes in on one of the points that I've selected. So I can select my origin. I'll choose this second plane here, and then I can just type in 4 times 25.4, hit enter, and I have my arc. So with the arc with that same radius that I typed in before, I think we're ready to do a blend. So we'll select this, hold Control, select here, and then I choose my blend. And you can see we're blending one surface to another surface. And then I can choose a guide, or I can choose a center line. I want a guide, so I choose my guide. And what do you know? We've got a really cool looking blade. And I'll select the green check to finish my blend. Center line is similar, you just get a different profile between the 2 surfaces. So I'm going to go back to FreeCAD. Let's do the same thing. In FreeCAD, this would be a sweep. I'll choose my sketch, and then I'll choose my path to sweep along. And then we want a multi-section transform. And I'm going to add my final sketch. And it looks like I've got a little problem here. My inside surface is intersecting. I'm sad about that. Let's delete that and use the spacebar to see if I've done anything wrong, right? So the top of this is going to the top of that. That's right. I don't have any broken faces. Let's try to do our sketch. We'll choose our object. Instead of transformed, well, let's see here. I'll go multi-section here. And then let's try Frenet. Maybe right corner makes a difference. In the preview, it's kind of hard to tell, but it does look like we're still going inside out there. I'm not sure what's causing that. But we know that we have a set thickness to our sketches, right? So let me delete my datum plane. And of course, sketch 002 breaks because it doesn't have a plane, so we're going to delete that. And I'm just going to take this back. I was not planning on troubleshooting in FreeCAD, but this could be valuable for someone. So we'll create a plane. And it knows I want plane by 3 points, right? So I selected this plane, or this point right here. I'll select this plane, create a sketch, and then again hide my sketch plane. So let's do the same thing, but we're going to do it just with these under points. So in theory, right, because there's a 0.0625 difference, we're going to say Shift R 4 times 25.4 minus 0.0625, and that should be theoretically an equivalent radius. Not quite, because we're working with NURB stuff here, but close enough for my liking. Let's go to tasks and close that. And let's try our sweep with the guide on the other side. So we choose our sweep profile, then we choose our sweep path, and then we choose our multi-section, and we'll add this section. And what do you know, I can tell already that is a nice consistent profile. So I'm not sure why that happened. It's probably me, and it's probably the fact that I'm recording many things while running multiple platforms and miss something in my concentration that caused that. But maybe I'll look at the footage after I'm done recording this and try to figure out why that was in an error. Again, I probably think that was a user error on my behalf. Either way, we have some cool looking blades that look pretty equivalent to me. So again, let's select the Z and hold Control and the X and go to Sketch, and let's sketch out a line with our plan view. Looks like you can terminate the line tool by double-clicking, which is a useful feature. We'll come up to this axis and get rid of this, right? So now we're making the body of the compressor, and I'm going to use my rim point arc to assist me in that as well. I'll select this line, hold Control, choose this point, and make them coincident, right? We choose our coincident relation. I'm going to choose my origin, choose this point here, and we're going to say 0. We're going to give this kind of a floor thickness, 0.0625 times 25.4. Why not have consistent dimensions? We're going to come over here and say 4 times 25.4. We'll make this something like 55, so it's a little bit taller than our blade profile. And now we just have to give this a dimension. What if I made this 75? Or And you can tell I've overdefined this so everything turns red. I can get rid of my radius dimension. I think it makes more sense just to dimension this. Control A, 15. Right, that's a good number. So, can I remember these dimensions that I just made up in FreeCAD? Let's find out. We'll grab the same plane. Okay. We'll grab polyline. Go down a little bit further. Let's say V for vertical here. And 3-point arc. We'll grab these 2 points, vertical. Shift V for vertical dimension, and we'll say 0.0625. And then, didn't mean to exit that sketch. If you exit sketch with the escape key, right, this is a newer install of FreeCAD, so I don't have all my preferences set yet. Just uncheck escape can leave sketch mode, and that changes that feature in FreeCAD for you. So we'll apply that. Looks like FreeCAD's a little frozen right now. Again, I'm recording a lot right now. Alright, there we go. Now we'll grab a horizontal. Actually, not a horizontal. What am I thinking? I want to drag this down. Highlight this and this. Vertical dimension 0.0625. Okay. Times 25.4 millimeters. 0.0625 times 25.4. There we go. That's much better. 0.0625 times 25.4. And we're just going to change that to millimeters. Perfect. Now Shift V, right? 55. We want Shift H. We want this to be 15. We want this to be 4 times 25.4. And we have our floor thickness, and I have remembered all my dimensions that I made up on the spot, so I think we're doing pretty good. I'm going to close that. Now with this stuff, let's do a revolve. So how we do a revolve is we go with the pole tool. We highlight our revolve here, and it asks us for an axis to revolve about, so I'm going to choose the Z axis. And now you can see that the arrows around my cursor change. And so I can click and drag. And I'm holding my mouse down right now. And I can move my mouse around to whatever degree angle I want. And I'm still holding my mouse down, 360, unclick. So now I'm not holding my mouse down, and enter. And it will snap to whatever degree angle I type in, which is my preferred way to do it. So it's a little bit different to be typing numbers on my keyboard while holding my mouse down, but that seems to be the easiest way that I found to specify what degree of rotation to enter. So I've done that little revolve. Let's see what a revolve in FreeCAD looks like. Right, I've got my revolve sketch here, and it already knows, or at least it already assumes what I want, and I can always adjust my axis here if it didn't assume correctly, but I just say OK. And we're looking pretty good so far, right? So next, let's make multiple blades. Let's go with holding Control, and we'll check. I'm just selecting all the faces of my blade. I don't know if that's required or not, but it's been the easiest way that I've learned how to do it right. I'm still kind of new to DesignSpark and figuring everything out. So we're going to go with the Move. And the first thing I want to do is check this Create Patterns box because we want to pattern this blade. And then we come up here to this guy that says Anchor. And it says click to set the location of the handle. So I click this axis that was generated. And you can tell my handle right here goes around that axis. And if I go to move this a little bit, you can tell I'm given both a degree angle up here and a count. I want my count to be 8, So I type in 8. And then for this, I'll type in 360. And I get a pattern of 8 blades. So I simply click off of that or move to my select tool. And I have this pretty good geometry right here, right? Let's try that in FreeCAD. We'll go to, say, polar pattern. We'll select our additive pipe, which is our blade. Whoops. There we go. I want to have, how about 8 occurrences? And it, of course, correctly assumes which axis that I want, which I can adjust my axis in here if I wish. We're going to say OK. So, again, things seem pretty similar so far, I think. How about I make a little cut profile on my blades next? So I'll go to my plane here and uncheck it so it's not visible anymore. I'm going to hold Control and hit my Z and X plane. Yeah, that's what I want, ZX. And I'll create a sketch. You know what? I'm actually going to do my ZY. Hold Control, right? Select my Y and my Z. And then plan view, and I can just start sketching. I'm going to choose a circle. Maybe something like that. This is a direct editor, so technically you don't constrain your sketches, even though it allows you to, because of people like me that really like to constrain sketches. But maybe I'll just give this a basic 115. That looks good. I'll just make that a nice round 80. Give this a dimension of, how about 100, right? All right, let's actually make this something like 130, right? A little bit bigger. And we're going to end our sketch. So one little nuanced thing is we chose a plane that happened to share this face. And so if I hide my solid from view for a second, you can tell that that face affected our circle. We wanted a circle, but we got this little indent cut out here. And we can't edit our sketch because we've exited our sketch. So, I mean, we can edit it by saying Control-Z, but what I want to do is hold Control, select the 3 edges that I don't want there, hit Delete, and they go away, right? It updates into a circle. So that's the kind of mental thought process that you have when in a direct editor, right? You generally just keep editing what you have and don't look at the history, because you really can't without a history tree unless you hit Control-Z, which undoes all the work that you've done. So yeah. Let's now do a pull, and let's do a pull cut. So I'm going to move to my pull tool, right click, and choose this little minus sign for cutting material. We'll choose revolve, and I'll choose this axis to revolve around. I'm going to hold my mouse down, and as I start to go around here, I'm going to type 360, unclick my mouse, and hit enter. And now we've got a great little profile that we are cutting out of our blade, right? It looks a little bit more like a compressor. Next, let's try that in FreeCAD. So let's grab a sketch. I think I'm doing an acceptable job switching back and forth in between platforms and remembering all the controls in each. What did I have in DesignSpark here? Let's switch back. I am going to hit Control-Z just to check my sketch because I don't remember my dimensions. Okay, 115, 80, and 130, right? So then I hit Control Y to redo everything. And we're going to say Shift V for 80, Shift H for 115, Shift R for 130, but we're doing a radius, so we divide by 2. Then we'll close. Now we don't have the surface work that we're doing, so this remains a circle. We don't have to worry about that little anomaly that we saw. So now we can simply say remove revolve or simply groove. And what do you know? It knows what axis we want, so we're able to get that pretty quick. Fantastic. So next, we'll run back here to DesignSpark, and let's create a plane. There could be a brilliantly easier way to make a plane than what I'm about to do, but let's create a sketch, right? We go to the plan view, and I want to make a plane directly between two blades, which looks like we want it to be parallel to the ZX plane, right? So we're going to create a line. We'll come out here. I created a plane on that face, which I didn't want to do. Alright, so let me create a line right there. We'll give it a dimension. How about, this will be our offset dimension. How about 75? And it looks like that didn't go right, so I'm going to hit Control Z. We'll take this and say for construction. And that DesignSpark usually shows the for construction curves. Alright, there's my construction line, right? So I'm going to grab just the endpoint of that, and that creates a plane. So we'll go plan view and jump into a sketch. And let's make a splitter blade. The splitter blades are pretty fun. So let's go with a sweep arc. Let's just close the profile, right? We're just going to go with a real simple splitter blade here. Let's make a coincident with this point and our origin. We'll give this a dimension of, how about 25.4? This would be the ID, of course. We'll give this a dimension of 0.0625 times 25.4 to have like a consistent thickness as the other blade. We'll grab this and, nope, Control Z. We're still in dimension here. We want to grab this, and maybe tone that angle down a little bit. How about 55 degrees? That looks good. So we're going to exit our sketch now. Now, one thing that we can do if we want it to be really simple, right, we can take our pull tool. I'm going to hide my plane and just pull this directly in. And of course, I'll hit Control Z. That thinks that we want to take away material, so I'm going to hit this plus sign to say that we want to add material. We can have like a pretty simple splitter blade, but I don't like that geometry. I'm not an expert on compressor design, but I don't think that would flow as well, so I'm going to hit Control Z. And let's utilize a different tool that's still pretty simple. I'm going to highlight my ZX. We'll hit Sketch and make a rectangle, and now we're sketching, of course, on our ZX plane. We'll go with a dimension of 0.0625 times 25.4, consistent thickness. We're going to go from here to here. We'll grab our dimension here and say 25.4 in height, and I think we're fully constrained. So we're going to hold Control and select this and choose Blend. And I'll hide my solid. Looks like I have to select this. And it looks like we've got a little bit of an issue, right? That's not how we want our faces to be. So let's hit escape a few times. I don't think this line is throwing it off. I think it's just, we'll hold Control and select these two, create a sketch by selecting our line. I'm going to select this point from our surface and take it to the origin. And then we're going to end our sketching. And that way I'm saying I want this corner to go to this corner, and that should clear things up. Again, hold Control, we'll choose Blend, and then we'll choose Guide Curves again. We'll take our line as a guide, and that fixes our profile, right? So there's our splitter profile. I'm again going to choose my solid. It looks like I have two solids now. So that blend did not merge. If I choose Add, does that do anything? I think there's a way to merge these together. You can use the Combine, but if I choose the Combine, I'm not convinced. Maybe I can still pattern it. Again, this is one of those things where I'm not brilliantly familiar with DesignSpark, so at any rate, let's hurry and do this in FreeCAD and then work it out. We will choose our ZY plane, because that seems to be the space in between two blades. So YZ, I choose this, and then I can choose an offset in the Z direction. I did 75 in DesignSpark. So we're going to say OK. We're going to create a sketch on this. We'll go to our model and hide our data plane. We'll choose this little cut right here so that we can see our origin and reference off of it. Let's choose some sweep arcs that will be concentric. We'll choose a line, another line. I'm going to say H for horizontal. We'll choose coincident. Oh, coincident for point, rather. I clicked the wrong button. We're going to choose these two lines. A for angle. I believe that we did 55. Shift H, 0.0625 times 25.4. We'll choose this center point here, and we're going to choose coincident. And then I believe that this is horizontal. Shift R, right, our inner radius will be 25.4, so that's one blade profile. And we will go tasks, close our sketch. Now we want to sketch again, this time on the YZ plane. And we'll make the same sketch. We'll again cut our view. We'll make this here. Shift V, 25.4. Shift H. Oops. Shift H. 0.0625 times 25.4. We'll close. I'll hold Control and select my two sketches, and we'll just choose a simple loft. And that produces the blade that we wish, right? There's our splitter blade. We'll do a circular pattern while we have this low-hanging fruit. We'll choose our additive loft. And it should already remember our axis as before, and it should remember our pattern. Whoops, I accidentally clicked out of it, so we'll choose 8 instances. And we do want to adjust our axis. So we want to go with our Z axis. There we have our splitter blade patterned. Let's go back and handle our pattern in DesignSpark. First off, let's just pattern this blade as a solid. It looks like it froze up on me for just a second. I am, again, recording a ton of stuff right now. So I'm going to choose my whole solid. We'll go with Move. We check Create Patterns. We come over here and we set our handle around the center axis. And now I can start to move. Oh, and it looks like Create Patterns was deselected. So I select Create Patterns. Right, I type in 8 for my count, and then my degree angle, 360. And that merged everything. So we're back to one solid, it looks like. Just to make sure. No, we are not back to one solid, right? So our pattern counts as one solid, and our solid counts as another solid. All right, so I've got my pattern and my solid, but they're not merged, right? And we want to merge those bodies now. So I'm going to stand on both my pattern and my solid and click on Combine. It looks like I'll again select my pattern. Oh, and it looks like the Combine just split it into a bunch of different solids here, which isn't what I wanted, right? So let's just select bodies to merge. As you can tell, as I click these, they change color, which I'm not super brilliantly familiar with DesignSpark, but I think this color change does indicate that we are merging these into a solid. This looks like our last one. Now we'll go back to the Select tool, and yep, we have one solid that you can tell these blades are orange now. So I still have my pattern, which could be for these blades. I believe it is. But now we have all these things. So let's talk about some of the cool advantages here. I select this top face, and we're going to go Sketch, Circle. Let's go with the dimension 15. I like that. We'll end the sketch. We're going to select Pull. And of course, I can create like a little peg on top, or I can cut down in with the Pull tool. Super convenient. We're just going to go all the way through. Some of the cool advantages are, now that I have some pattern components, if I create a fillet on my blade, you can tell this is a great deal of thinking for the fillet, but there's a good reason behind that. This fillet is applied to every blade in the pattern. And I can say 1 and enter, and it failed to build around. Okay, so it probably has a problem with 1 millimeter, but it's pretty cool that I fillet one blade, and it goes to every blade except apparently this one. All right, so let's click here. You can tell if I hit delete, if I don't want that fillet anymore, I just highlight the fillet, hit delete, and it removes the fillet from all the blades. And then I can investigate as to why this fillet is only showing up on this blade. Oh, non-manifold. So we have, if I try to delete this, I get a non-manifold error. The mystery thickens, so I'm just going to hit Control-Z. Alright, so I hit Control-Z until I have no more edges that are highlighted. Still in the Pull tool. Or no more fillets exist, I mean. Let's pull this down to close to 1 millimeter. There we go. So I'm not sure what that was, but we have a fillet on every blade. It is so nice to just be able to fillet something on every blade. We're close to 1 millimeter. Let's see if it'll let me say 1 millimeter and enter. Yeah, failed to build rounds. So, but we can fillet our blades pretty well. Go back to the Pull tool. Make close to 1 millimeter round or fillet on this one, and it goes right in. So you can, if you have this little pattern here in the tree, create pattern features automatically, which is, again, super convenient. We'll go to fillet. Now I have this little graphical anomaly, and you could tell this is actually round, but the graphics represent it as a bunch of straight lines. But I'm wondering if that is creating kind of a complication if I try to add a fillet. Let's see. I'm going to save this first. And we'll create a fillet. Let's see, where's my fillet? There it is. Nope, the fillet goes right in at 1 millimeter, right? So We're going to add, and I can add. If you have trouble selecting an edge, just zoom in. We'll add another edge. And then, we can select each edge to add, which is a little bit more time consuming, but we only have 8 blades, so it's not that bad. I think that's our last one. Yep. And then we can also look to add fillets on the outside of every blade like we did in DesignSpark. But we have an invalid resulting shape, so that's interesting. Let's remove edge 13 and see what happens. So like that, let me select edge 13 and just add a fillet by itself. And we do. I wonder if it's because of this little line right here. Let's try 1.01 and see if we can round it past that edge for some reason. Still. Well, I could be right about that little edge, or I could be dead wrong, but for some reason this specific blade doesn't like to have that fillet like everything else, so that could be a problem, and I don't know if I'm ready to just experiment with this or not too much. Failed to create fillet. We got a different error that time. I don't know if that's a hint or not. At any rate, right, we can have pretty much the same stuff in FreeCAD and DesignSpark, and we've talked about some of the advantages of DesignSpark, but let's talk about one thing in FreeCAD that really does make a big difference. If we go to the additive loft, no, let's go to additive pipe, right, so we set our definitions here, sketch 002, there it is. Let's say that I want to adjust this to be 150, right? Totally change my blade profile. FreeCAD does a great deal of thinking here. And then we close. And that broke our fillet, which I'm not too concerned about, right? So we're going to delete our fillet. Nothing else is broken. So we've changed our blade profile. And here's what's really interesting, right? We come back here. How would we make that change here? We don't have a tree, and we don't have the sketches that we used to make that profile. And I can grab this, and can I change, right? It wants me to add a round. Long story short, I can thicken the blade, but I don't see a way in changing the blade profile in the way that we had before. We're busy thinking about thickening the blade here. Yeah, so it failed to make it that thick, but we go to this curve, right? And if I try to edit my arc, there's not really an option to edit the radius of this, and I don't even know if these are parametrically connected. So making certain specific edits like this, yeah, it wants me to move this arc out into a surface. If I change the radius of this arc to 150, yeah. I'm not seeing a way to change this blade profile and I don't think that this arc is parametrically connected to the blades anymore. So there are some complications with using a direct editor, and this is a real drawback. And this is why we have a history tree. Because it's one thing to be working in AutoCAD when you have like 2D drawings that you can change or update or set things to be certain ways, but there's not really a way here to make that complex of a change. So there are advantages and downfalls to this direct editing approach. This is why you have a history tree. So FreeCAD, I think the last thing, if I run back to my sketch here, I'm going to change this back to, let's do something tight. What if I did 70? Yeah, so now we have curvier blades. So you have these really cool updates that you can make. Let's go with Edit Sketch. 4 times 25.4. So lastly, I'm pretty sure you get a paid add-in to export this stuff from DesignSpark. And you would go to, let's see, export options, right? So we have a 3D PDF, a 3D print, a DXF, that's like AutoCAD. Let's go with DesignSpark compressor. And I'm meshing this pretty tight by my default settings. So we outputted our mesh, and we can choose, right, export options, STL, and then we can say options here, and we can choose our deviation and angle, which that's a pretty tight mesh. And then I can go to FreeCAD, and I can import my compressor. And we've just imported the mesh from DesignSpark, and you can tell we're seeing, graphics from both on pretty much every surface. So I think that's a pretty good indication that we've basically made the same part with the same profile blades and everything. So it's kind of cool to be able to see them superimposed. I can go to Edit, is it View? It's View, Visibility, Appearance, and we'll make this, right? So now you can see our DesignSpark mesh is red, and our FreeCAD part is gray. We've got almost the exact same part. I'm missing my hole down the middle, but I gotta add it, right? So hopefully this was kind of an interesting look at how the two workflows compare, and some of the edits that you can make in FreeCAD or in a Libre or SolidWorks or any other parametric platform that you can't make in DesignSpark after you've made it, or at least that I have no clue how you would do that. Let's go through all. And some of the ease and advantages and filleting that you can do in DesignSpark that you would have a harder time with a parametric platform. So DesignSpark is a different tool with different advantages and different disadvantages, and would be used for different applications probably. So that is how the workflow compares, and a closer look at the tools that you can use to make something like a compressor. Oh, we're looking at my desktop. Let's go back to DesignSpark. So let's save both. And I better get my mesh out of there and save it. Let's just take a look at modeling one more thing in DesignSpark that just uses a little bit different tools and a little bit different approach, just to be well-rounded. I know this is a long video and I'm talking a lot, but I was planning for it to be a long video, right? So let's say File, New, Design. Run our XY plane. That seems good for me. We'll go to the plan view, create a sketch. We'll create a circle. And let's create a few circles. And this is going to be a little bit more constraint heavy than we have been in DesignSpark. I'm going to toggle this one to be for construction. Let's create 5 circles. We're going to choose equal radius, and we're going to set this and this to be equal, this and this to be equal, right? So we're going to make sure that all of our circles here are equal. Let's make a 5-spoke wheel. All right, so we have our circles drawn and everything. Let's make sure that they're all coincident. Looks like I've got to add one coincident with this circle center to here. And then is this, we should add a vertical. So I'll select that and that, add another coincident, and that keeps it vertical, right? Now we want to make sure that each of these from center to center is 1/5 of a rotation because we've got 5 holes. And there's a few ways to do that. But now I know that there's an option to make 2 lengths equal in DesignSpark, but I haven't investigated it enough that I can get it to work. So the other thing, if I haven't mentioned, I can set geometry like that, horizontal, but I can't use that to reference points like I could in other platforms. So instead, I'm going to draw some construction lines and make those horizontal, right? So we grab horizontal, there, and there. Then we'll grab a dimension, and we want this to be 72. Oops. And also 72. And then what diameter do we want this to be? It looks like we need to add a coincident, right? So we'll grab this line. Actually, I'll grab coincident. This line on that point, coincident, right? There we go. Now everything looks coincident. So we're going to say in millimeters, 114, and I think it's by 0.7 on a wheel. I'd have to look it up. And then here, let's say 12.7 millimeters for our hole diameter. And then let's say, what if I did 150? Maybe 140. I said 140U. There we go. And maybe something like 50.8. Ooh, 75. That's kind of cool. So we're fully defined, right? Everything is blue. And that was kind of a more complex sketch because I don't think that you have sketch patterns up here. Yeah, so we kind of just had to do that manually. That was the most efficient way that I knew of. Otherwise, I just would have done a construction line from center to center to center and set all of them equal. But I haven't figured out equal geometry in DesignSpark yet. So I'm going to type in, say, 12.7 again. And there we have like a nice mounting hub for a wheel. Next, go over to my curves. And I don't need my construction geometry, so I'm just going to hide all that. We're going to take this face and sketch on it. Right? Let's make a little distance there. We'll go with something like, what if I did 75? Looks good to me. We'll end the sketch. We'll grab the little tip of that. I better go to select instead of pull. We'll go to the little tip of that line there. So I've got that point selected. We'll create a plane. So I'll select my plane. Actually, before I do that, we'll come here and go to Plan View. Let's make a simple 4-element sketch. So I've made a swept arc. We'll make a construction line for that. We'll go from point to point, and we'll set that to be horizontal. And then we'll go kind of eccentrically far. And then we'll have another swept arc. Actually, let's do a 3-point arc. Construction line again. We'll set our construction line to be horizontal. That's not fully defined, but I think that's going to meet my needs. It's a direct editor, so I'm going to give myself an excuse to not fully define. We'll select this plane, plan view, right? So now we're sweeping the spoke of our wheel. You can see our sketch here. All right, we'll go to Sketch. And I'm going to make this go to a line now. That's a little bit dramatic. Guess I'll just delete that and work on defining this. Right. Let's say I want this to be 85. And then I haven't figured out some of the other constraints, so I'm just going to say 85 divided by 2. There's going to be a more elegant way of handling that than what I've just done. Let's say 15. Then let's go for grab vertical. I think my view might be turned, so we'll call that horizontal. Give that a radius. How about 50.8? $70. So we're going to say 85 minus 70 divided by 2. And that centers us up. And how else do we need a dimension? We'll add one from here to here. And we'll say it's 30. We'll end that, right? Next, let's take our curve and let's hide all of our curves. We don't need any of them. If I highlight my Z and my X and I say to create a plane, and then I go to my move tool, yeah, that's a faster way than making a sketch and defining it by a dimension, I think. So I'm going to say, how about 254? And with my plane highlighted, I'll create a sketch. Plan view. Now we want let's make it, kind of a asymmetric wheel. So let's go with a line, say out here, and make roughly the same thing. Add an arc. I really need to figure out that equal distance. It should be super simple. It's been something I haven't gotten a chance to look up yet. Let's go with 60. This dimension, I like 40. This dimension, let's do something big, 200. Whoa, that kind of throws us off, doesn't it? So we'll define it more and then change that to 200. This dimension, let's go with 100. So it gets maybe 130, so it gets a bit wider. We'll add a construction line that we'll make sure is vertical. And that throws us off Control Z, right? So we set that to horizontal because I think our view is shifted. So we're stuck at 130 here. That has a radius. We'll grab a dimension and make this about 90. And then again, there's going to be a more elegant way than what I'm doing to center this. Open parenthesis, 130 minus 90 divided by 2. And that makes everything centered. Really, there should be some kind of symmetric constraint that would be more elegant. Let's make that 50. I'll make that 200, right? Much more gradual, much better. Maybe 100. That looks good. Okay, how else are we not constrained, right? We want that to be vertical, so I choose my horizontal, and now we're fully constrained, right? So let's do a quick test. I imagine we'll need another profile for a predictable blend. But if I choose my blend tool, choose this guy, hold Control and choose this guy, we're blending out there. We hold Control and choose that guy, right? So our spoke is good, but it gets quite big. And we want another profile to keep that under control. And we'll also add a little bit of wobble in there, which I think would look pretty cool. So I'm not going to be too concerned about trying to keep some consistent radius or something in between profiles. We'll just wobble everything. An alternative could be we could try a guide curve, but I think I like the direction where I'm going of adding a different profile. So let's create a plane, which we've just done. I'm going to choose Move, and we're going to move this out here. I can go directly in between, or I can try to keep it close. I'm going to try to go directly in between, and that should make for a reasonably well-behaved profile. Again, I'm just kind of winging this, so I don't think I'm going to mess it up too bad by guesstimating a few dimensions. We'll go to Plan View. There we are. It might be interesting to make this a little bit asymmetric. And I totally just eyeballed that. I just want to know what that's going to look like if it's kind of asymmetric in a somewhat radical way. Yeah, you can tell it's way more well behaved with this extra profile. I'm liking the preview. It gets kind of chunky fast around here, so let's adjust some of our profiles. And again, I don't have a sketch to be able to adjust this, so we are going on direct editing to do this. Right? If I adjust my profile of this edge and I just bring these edges in, and then I go back to my blend tool, and I'm just kind of going back and forth in my blending preview to see what our spoke is going to look like. I like that better. Let's narrow this up a little bit. Right, so I go to my pull tool, and I choose here and here. And I can make that tall if I wanted to. That would be interesting if it got really thick in the middle, but let's try the opposite, right? We're going to go a little thin and wide. We'll blend. That's looking pretty slick. Again, we have that little wobble in the middle. I think that kind of adds to the look of the wheel, in my opinion. I like the way it comes out of there. So let's accept that. So we still have one solid, and it's not like our spoke and our mounting plate is two different surfaces. So I'm going to highlight all the faces of that. All right, we're going to go to the Move, Create Patterns. We'll select this face to move our drag handle. And as I start to move this, I'm going to keep my mouse held down, and I'm going to say 360, and it should give me an option for the number of instances. So you know what, let me move this to 72 then and see what happens. There you go, so I hit 72 and it automatically gave me 5 because 72 is a fifth of a rotation. You can also, it looks like now I can readjust my degree angle and my count if I wish, but that's exactly what I want. That's kind of cool, a wavy 5-spoke. Next, let's go to our ZX plane and go to the plan view and start sketching. I'm going to make just a kind of a basic wheel profile. From here to here, let's say we want 9 times 25.4. Yeah, that changes the sketch quite a lot, right? We want this line to be, how about, 25.4. This line also 25.4. Let's say vertical here. This is a direct editor, and so I could fully define this sketch. I'm going to say that it's a direct editor, so my excuse is not to. That should be an interesting profile. Now we'll choose Offset. Select everything. Offset. We're going to get rid of this line. We'll choose Coincident. Nice. And the sketch. We'll choose a, oh, that doesn't even intersect, does it? Because I missed an important point. I have to Control Z twice. I need to set this and this to be 254. And that will be much more acceptable. You know, I don't like that coincident. I'm just going to get rid of that line while I'm at it. We'll do kind of an abrupt transition. All right, I like that. We're going to go with Offset. Right. So I'm going to hold Control for Offset. Highlight all this. Offset. Where did it go? There it is. And we're going to say 125 times 25.4. Now, we'll go with a line from here to here, and a line from here to here. Whoops, that seemed to, let's Control Z that. Looks like in that offset I was missing a line. That's what happened. So let's see if we can run a trim here. That's better. We'll add our line in. All right, we'll end the sketch. We'll do a pull. We'll select this axis. We'll revolve this. I'm going to hold down my mouse, 360. Looks like we're busy thinking. And there we have it. Interesting, that's like a deep dish 5-spoke. All right. With the pull command, sometimes you can get rid of your face by selecting it and then choosing up to and choosing another face. And yeah, that worked okay, but I'm going to hit Control Z and Control Z. Right. I think what I'll do instead is just select the faces that go past where I'm wanting them, and I just push delete. Right. Really simple that way. Delete. Delete. I think I deselected everything on the last one. Delete. Take my planes and hide them. Probably save this. So fillet-wise, sometimes the order that you add fillets matters. So go to the pull tool here. Maybe I'll start adding fillets here, and I love that it updates. Maybe I'll add in, what if I did a 15 millimeter? Will that work? Yes, it does. Select this edge. Does a 15 millimeter work? Might run into that hole there. It does. Not in the way I was expecting, but so this is kind of awkward. I'm going to hit Control Z twice actually. And we'll start with this. So add this, maybe I'll say 7. We'll fillet that and say 9. Let's see if that works. Nope. 5. So we got 5. And actually we still have our fillet up front, so that's good. Let's give this maybe 2.5. This edge. Alright, well it looks like 5.26 is a good dimension, so grab this here. See if I can do 5. Yep. Don't you love that it fillets the whole pattern? It's kind of intoxicating. Let me select, I'm going to hold Control and just select the path of edges so that my intent will be clear to DesignSpark. If there's any problems, it may be worth filleting this edge first. Let's give this a try. Let's try 8. Yeah, I don't think it likes 8. Oh, I didn't even see the preview on that one. No, let's do that. Let's do a quick pull on this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. We can afford to go to like 10. Maybe even 15. Alright, so we have that area to build rounds, but we just built them up here. So let's see what happens if I try to add something like a 7mm fillet around here. Yeah, that goes in beautifully. Come down here, right, fillet this one. Maybe we want to have something like 3. Another 3. Maybe 4 over here. There's a mild sharp edge on here that we can smooth out, maybe with a 2 or close to it. This edge could probably be smoothed. We'll go small. Should we try 2 right here? No. Lots of smoothing to do around here. That side's already looking smooth. We'll add a chamfer in here. I'm not seeing a preview. There we go. Let's try 6. And then I'll stand on it. And there's the chamfer, right? Each of these maybe 3, but of course we want chamfer. Actually, I should grab each of these. A little small fillet. I did a move face when I didn't mean to. Just wanted to select this edge. A real small fillet there. Looks like I'm adding chamfers, so let's change this, right? That's better. We'll make this 2. And that continues. So I think we've made a wheel now. We've got sharp edges in here, and these are looking kind of big, right? So let's go to the pull tool. Wow. Let's say that that looks a bit more reasonable. I don't think we've had an example of pull 2 that worked yet, right? So I can select this, pull 2, and I select it over here, and it resizes whatever I'm pulling to the right side. So that's an example of pull 2 that should work better. Great, so that is my wobbly 5-spoke wheel. There's still some stuff that needs to get done, but I think it illustrates the point of what a direct modeling workflow might look like. So hopefully this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.